Cowabunga, everybody. I'm John. Welcome to the channel. On Thursday, I recorded a reaction to Creature Commandos episode 3. And I didn't have time to edit it. I didn't have time to record my final thoughts. And because I had to go to work, and when I got home, I have suffered technical difficulty after technical difficulty. I have lost the original intro I recorded. I have lost the reaction itself. I was able to recover that, um, but then I lost it again, and it's just too much. So earlier today, this is Saturday, about 5:15. Earlier today, around 3:30, I recorded the final thoughts portion. Um, so I'm just going to play that and give you a review of what I thought. Um, a few things I would like to mention first, though, that were in the original introduction. First, I am getting so angry at other reviewers and reactors uh, for the simple fact that a review is you talking about your feelings and the show. A reaction actually shows us in the moment what you were feeling. Um, I don't like reviews as much, which is why it pains me to be doing this because it's very easy for someone to go, "Oh, I hated it. It's awful." But if you're watching the reaction, their face is saying something completely different. Just like right now, I could tell you how much I loved it, but unless you saw the joy on my face when certain parts hit, you wouldn't know that. Second thing is I am seeing a lot of reviewers taking things for granted. So it has been confirmed that Waller's daughter outed her at the end of Peacemaker season one. None of the other events from Peacemaker season one have been confirmed. And although interviews, they basically said it all happened except for the Justice League cameo at the end. And the other thing is, yes, Project Starfish was mentioned. We know that Weasel had a bad experience, more than likely, probably drowned, almost drowned. We know that Weasel survived. We know that Rick Flag Jr. died, probably at the hands of Peacemaker and probably at the behest of Amanda Waller. But we know nothing else about the Suicide Squad as being canon, meaning that the events could have went down a completely different way. It could have been a completely different squad because this is a reboot. None of the events might have happened. So don't be surprised if James Gunn puts Polka Dot Man back in the mix because he can just say he wasn't on the Corto Maltese mission. He never participated in Project Starfish. And the same goes for any of the others at the beginning. Uh, I'm really hoping he brings back Javelin. I really liked Javelin. I'm hoping that, you know, maybe Harley Quinn wasn't on the mission at all, and Javelin was the one who thrust the javelin in the eye at the end. You know, nothing is guaranteed unless it's actually mentioned, and a lot of reactors are um, taking that for granted. Also, in my final thoughts, I forgot to mention that Sam and the Nazi rally took place in Hub City. Hub City is home to the original Question, and I love Vic Sage, the original Question. Uh, I didn't read a lot of his actual Charlton run, but I did read him, in the '90s and really enjoyed that that feature. So I'm excited for that Hub City has been mentioned. Also, not to get too political, but did anyone else notice that the Sons of Themyscira cap, the guy Phosphorus Shish Kebabs, changed from red in the trailer that was made before the election to blue in the version we actually got now that it's December. Uh, I that like takes my opinion down a notch because in the trailer it was making a statement and now it's not. So little things like that can really throw off a tone and a vibe. Um, and also, I didn't mention the subtext here about our military men is glaring. And I was so involved in the DC story, I forgot to mention that, yeah, he might be a robot, but he's finding it hard to live in a world without World War II going on. Just as a lot of our military men who come back from the Middle East find it hard to adjust to living in civilian life after uh, the horrors they experienced in war. So the subtext is there. I did pick up on it. I just didn't talk about it a lot. So, uh, unfortunately, I don't have a reaction for you, but here is the rest of my review.
All right, everyone. So that was episode 3 of Creature Commandos. Cheers for the Tin Man. Full disclosure, I recorded my reaction on Thursday when the episode went live. Unfortunately, I did not time it right, and I did not have time to do my final thoughts before I had to go work. And when I got home from work, I was suffering from technical issues, which is why the sound is so wonky in places. I apologize for that. Um, but was it just me, or this episode seemed much shorter than the other two? Maybe it was just because of everything crammed in there. Um, let's start with the cameos, shall we? Um, First off, we had Sergeant Rock and Easy Company, which I was never a big fan of World War II comics, but Sergeant Rock and Easy Company first appeared in Our Fighting Forces, and then spun off into their own book entitled Sergeant Rock. And he was the most prolific of the World War II um, comics. Now, rumor on the net is that they are thinking about doing a Sergeant Rock um, movie starring oh, what's his name from uh, Daniel Craig from Double O Seven and the Knives Out movies. Um, Interesting choice. He's not who I would have picked, but I know he can do the role. Um, and there's been some speculation that GI Robot might appear in said movie in live action. I don't think that's the case because typically Sergeant Rock, uh, other than maybe a mission or two to Dinosaur Island, kind of steered away from the fantastic. He was more the gritty, um, war hero. Um, maybe a couple of issues he teamed up with Haunted Tank, and we had the Ghost of Sergeant Jeb Stewart or General Jeb Stewart. Um, but for the most part, he remained very grounded. So I don't think GI Robot would appear in that movie. However, they have set it up that Sergeant Rock is a part of this universe, which is great. Then we fast forward 20 years into the future after the war. So somewhere around the mid 60s, and we meet Will Magnus, uh, creator of the Metal Man. So there have been no projects even rumored or talked about concerning the Metal Man. However, just knowing that they do exist in this universe is very exciting to me. I have loved the Metal Man since issue 11 of Crisis on Infinite Earths when they help power up the time bubbles to send the heroes to the beginning of the time and the villains back to uh, Oa right before Krona looked through his viewer and saw the hand. Um, so even though I didn't get to start collecting Metal Men and reading their adventures until much later, uh, they're a group that I've always enjoyed. So yeah, I'm excited knowing that they're in the DC universe. Uh, it then fast forwards um, to probably the late '90s, early 2000s, because the dealer in the shop said that he had bounced around from lab to lab from the 60s through the 90s. So somewhere in the 90s, he started becoming a collector's item because the government lost track of him. It was not until the scene where Sam was dressing him up in the jacket and the hat that I realized, oh, that's Michael Rooker's voice. Um, so that was cool when I realized that. But then it wasn't until the drive to the meeting that I realized something might be a little off. And then seeing that white power, uh, hearing them talk about the cause, that made me go, huh. And then seeing the white power tattoo kind of cemented it before I saw the Nazi flag. Now, after his arrest, we get to see four other inmates in Belle Reve as he walks by their cells. The first one I recognized immediately. It's the Shaggy Man. His face looks a little more human than in the comics, and he's much shorter than in the comics, but it's definitely Shaggy Man. Shaggy Man was a villain created for the Justice League, and he's basically Doomsday. I mean, he is a killing machine, and he will fight anything that moves. And um, which he seemed awfully calm in that cell, but yeah. The second one I don't recognize because I did record this on Thursday, and it is now Saturday afternoon, about 3 o'clock. I uh, I have heard speculation that it could be the Fisherman, who is an Aquaman villain, and also speculation that it is the Reaper, who is the Batman villain. Personally, I don't think he looks like either one, but what do I know? The third one was definitely Animal Vegetable Mineral Man, posed and looking just like he did when he premiered on the cover of Doom Patrol. Um, so yes, we have Animal Vegetable Mineral Man in this universe. I do hope we get to see him live action. I hope, as much as I love Alec Mappa and his performance in the Doom Patrol TV series, I do hope for a more comic accurate version, excuse me, of the character in the new universe. Um, and then finally, the last one is the Crimson Centipede. That is a deep dive into Wonder Woman. I believe he only had like one appearance, maybe it was a two-issue thing, but he, as far as I know, he only appeared once as a villain for Wonder Woman, and he was created by Ares to kill her, and that didn't happen. He was defeated. So, yeah, that was a deep cut. I enjoyed that. Okay, let's move on to story uh, and artwork. First off, the artwork on this show is freaking amazing. And it had some really nice moments this episode. Um, but as far as story goes, there were definitely some plot holes right at the very beginning. First off, the bride's coat was upstairs, presumably with the necklace inside of it, and she had those inflatable arms, and her face was beaten to a pulp. Apparently, Cersei fixed all that and returned her coat, presumably with the necklace inside, before she got tied up. That was awfully nice of her. Nina lay dying, and apparently they put her in a bathtub so that she could breathe, and then put barbed wire over it so that she couldn't escape. Not that she could without her helmet anyway. Uh, but so saving Nina that way makes sense. Fixing up the bride and returning her coat just did not make sense to me. Uh, Granted, they needed them both alive so that their trackers would still be on and the team would come rescue them. But that seemed a little too nice for Cersei, and definitely too nice for the Sons of Themyscira. Uh, as everyone was breaking into Frankenstein's manor, I loved when Weasel came crashing through that window. That just seems so cool. I mean, everyone else was crashing through walls and doors, but for me, Weasel crashing through the window was so cool. Uh, I would like to point out another plot hole. Before they left for the manor, they did not know that Nina and the bride were under attack. They just knew they had disappeared. So it made absolutely no sense that Flag would not have left one, if not two, of the team back at the castle, preferably GI Robot and Weasel, because he couldn't trust Phosphorus. He would want to keep Phosphorus in his sights. So it would make sense for him to drag Phosphorus along, but he should have left the other two to guard the princess. Just my opinion. Um, yeah, and then all the rest of it was like graphic violence, which I was totally here for. I was a little heartbroken when Jake 2 exploded. That would be GI Robot for those who haven't read the comics. He does have a name. It's Jake 2. Um, and that's because of all these characters. GI Robot was the one I actually read back in the 80s. Um, I, I, s- the only appearance of Weasel I remember reading was a crossover between Doom Patrol and the Suicide Squad. It was Suicide Squad Doom Patrol Special. Uh, and the Weasel was fighting on the side of the squad. Uh, but and I know he was a Firestorm villain because I remember seeing him on the cover of Firestorm, but I never read that issue, so I didn't really know who he was. But I knew who GI Robot was, and to see him exploded like that, it was kind of heartbreaking. Um, and yes, they have the technology to rebuild GI Robot if they wanted to. And I could see Amanda doing it, but at the same time, technology is so advanced now that I don't see her wanting to rebuild a 1943 killing machine when she could just build a 2024 killing machine. Uh, so that was kind of heartbreaking. And then I was cheering for Weasel when he attacked Cersei, like so totally cheering for him. Uh, although that was, I mean, GI Robot shooting people up throughout the entire episode was pretty graphic, but Weasel's attack on Cersei was so graphic. Uh, it took me by surprise. And then Phosphorus burning her face uh, was even worse, especially that scream she let out. And I thought that was overkill. I think Phosphorus doing that was just an excuse to have the bride say, "You wanted monsters, well, you got monsters." So I appreciated all the other violence in the film, in this, in the episode, but the attack on Cersei seemed very overkill to me. Um, and then the big reveal, you don't know what you've done, you've doomed the world. Yeah, typical Cersei. So we'll find out what that means next episode. All in all, I really enjoyed it. If you did too, please comment down below. Let's discuss. I love talking about comic books if you haven't figured that out yet. And I am so excited for this new universe, and let's see what happens. But as for now, it's surf is up. Time for me to go. Y'all be safe and be good to each other. Have a wonderful day.